All right, ladies and gentlemen, so now that you have gone through the MIDI recap video and you locked in all of this MIDI, we are now going to be locking in some audio, okay? The tool that you use to lock audio to the grid is called the Flextool, okay? Every DAW has a different name for it. Pro Tools, I believe, is called Pitch and Time. In Logic, in our world, it's called the Flextool, and it's right here. This is the Flextool, and the shortcut for the Flextool is Command F. Okay, now before we get started with locking in some audio, you need to understand and see that these regions right here that are in red, they are audio tracks or audio regions, not MIDI regions. Okay, if you look, you'll see that there's wave files and transients. This makes all of these tracks here audio tracks. Okay, now let's pay attention to what's going on just in this section from 95 to 105. If you look here, you'll notice that the loudest transients are coming from the kick drum. Just about every time that you mic a drum kit, you are going to use multiple microphones. Just like with a podcast, when you have multiple microphones, you're going to have audio bleed.
Wait a minute.
Just like with your podcast, when one person is talking and there are 6 microphones in the room, the other microphone is going to pick up that person very lightly because there's another microphone in the room. So let me give you an example of that, okay? Right here, my drummer is checking his kick drum. So here's the kick drum microphone by itself. Right? Okay, so that's the kick drum. But if you look here at this region, you're going to see there's a little bit of a transient. The same thing here and the same thing in the snare microphone. Look what happens. I'm going to play the floor tom microphone and you're going to hear that bleed from the kick drum. Listen. If I put the snare drum microphone on, you're going to hear it too. So you're always going to have audio bleed. That's always going to happen when you have multiple microphones in the room. You know what audio bleed is. You should know what it is right by now because we've talked about it when you did your podcast. Okay, so anyway, we're going to lock in this audio using the Flextool. Shortcut for the Flextool is Command F. Okay, but you're not going to lock these in one by one. Okay, what you're going to do is you're going to highlight all of your drums. Okay, so in this case, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 microphones on this drum kit, just 5. So I'm going to click here on the snare, then I'm going to hold shift, and I'm going to click on the kick drum. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here to my Flextool, and I'm going to open the Flextool. Watch what happens right here in the track header when I open the Flextool. See, now these 5 tracks have the Flextool open, but it's not working yet. Okay. If I click right here, you're going to see that I have all these different options for flexing or for how I want to lock in the drums to the grid. In this case, we're looking at drums, right? So we're probably going to use rhythmic. But before we can start flexing these drums, we need to do something very important. I'm going to bring up the mixer.
Wait a minute.
By the way, if you're not following along with this video, if you're just watching the video, you're wasting your time. You need to be following along. Okay, so when I open up my mixer, you're going to see that the tracks that I have highlighted on my main page or on my track header, they're highlighted in the mixer. Okay. So now what I need to do is I'm going to go right here to this empty space. And this is where you can group your tracks. Okay. So I'm going to click and hold this. and see where it says group 1 new. I'm going to click on that, and that's going to open up right here. Now I'm going to name this group drums flex. Let's just say that. Let's just name it that. Then I'm going to go right here to where it says settings, and I'm going to make sure that editing selection is checked, and I'm going to make sure track color is checked, and solo, and that's it. Make sure those boxes are all checked. Click on this arrow, and then all you're going to do next is close. Oh, by the way, if this if this box isn't checked, groups active, then you want to check that. Once you're done with that, click on groups, and then boom, there you go. Now anything you do to these tracks, it's all going to move together. Watch what happens when if I click on this snare top. If I move this snare top, notice all those tracks are moving because they're grouped. Your drum tracks must be grouped before you can start locking them in with Flextool.
Wait a minute.
Again, if you are not following along, you're wasting your time. Press the letter X, close the mixer. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my snare. I'm going to hold shift, click on kick, and now you notice all of these tracks are all highlighted together. Now I'm going to go here down to this slot, and I'm going to go down to where it says rhythmic, and I'm going to click on rhythmic. Okay, now Logic's going to analyze the audio, analyze, and once it's done analyzing, we can start flexing our drums. Okay, there we go. So now you see that the drums are coming up like this shaded look. Okay, what you want to do is you want to zoom in a little bit, and there's your drums. Next, go up to regions. See where it says quantize. You're going to go to quantize, and we are going to go 16th note. Boom. Okay. Once you've done that, zoom in to the drums. Now, your kick drum is down here at the bottom. This is what we are flexing, okay, or what we're locking in. Now, let's take a listen from measure 96 to 99. Let's go to 100. I'm going to hit play, and let's listen for that kick drum. Oh, by the way, I'm sorry. You got to turn on the metronome. So I'm turning on that metronome, and now let's listen. Wow, that's very pretty. Okay, so because I went up to, or just a second ago, we went up to quantize, and we went up to 1/16, and that flexed us in, just like MIDI. See that? Now, if we go to off, look what happens here. Okay, we're going to go to off. See, now it's not locked in. If you go down to the kick drum, you'll notice, just like with MIDI, the drums are not locked into the grid. See this kick drum? This is where it should be. It should be right here. And this one should be right there. And you see how they're a little bit off? So there's two ways to flex stuff in. You can either go up here just like with MIDI, and you can quantize, but sometimes that's not going to work. Sometimes you have to manually quantize stuff in, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to go down to these drums, and you see these lines that are dotted. These are called flex markers. You see them? This one here, and this one here. These lines are all called flex markers. So what I'm going to do is, you see how I'm holding my mouse over this and I'm getting these different icons? See that? So what you want to do is you want to make sure to bring your mouse over to this flex marker. That right there is a flex marker. Sorry, this thing's haywire. Okay, this is a flex marker. So what we want to do is we want to grab that flex marker, and you see how I have one line with a little triangle-ish thing up top. I think that's a word. I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to bring that over to 96. Look what's going to happen. See that? But these lines need to all be together. See that? If I go above this line and I press that X, it deletes the flex marker. So again, what we want to do is you want to take that flex marker and you want to bring it to 96. Notice that the flex tool, it flexed all of the tracks. Okay. If these tracks are not all flexed together, you're going to get an echo. Just like when you were working on your podcast, remember if you moved one track a little bit and all the other tracks were still on one thing, you would get that echo. Same thing here. Everything must be flexed together. So I'm going to go down to the next beat. Okay, look, here's the kick drum. This is the line it should be on. You should know this already, right? So once I grab my mouse, I want to hover over not 3. You want to grab it to where there's just one line with the little, I don't know, martini glass top thing. I don't know. Just make sure it's one line. Grab it down here. Notice that when I moved it this way, it locked right into the grid and then let it go. See? And it flexes everything together. Okay. Now I'm going to tell you, can you quantize this? Yes, you can, but this isn't going to work all the time. That's why I'm showing you how to manually do it. Okay. So we'll do one more. Let's manually lock it in. See that? See how it locks in just like MIDI. When you let it go, it's going to flex everything. Now, notice these lines on your right hand side are still dotted. And these lines, these three flex markers on your left are solid lines, right? That means that these flex markers on the left are active and the ones on the right are not. Okay. So go ahead and lock all of these kick drums in. Lock them all into the grid. Okay. Notice I'm doing this very quickly now. And you should be able to do this very quickly now. We're just going to flex these kick drums. Now look, all solid lines. Now when we play this back, all these kick drums are going to be perfectly on the grid, just like they would in MIDI. Watch this. See? Mr. Oh, you're the best. Okay. Let's go to bar 102 to 106. Now, here in this sequence, the kick drums are doubled. Boom, 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 boom. Right? Same thing. Same exact idea. I'm going to grab this kick drum. I'm going to move it to the grid. It's going to lock. I'm going to grab this one, make sure it's just one single line, and I'm going to lock it. Everything here is going to be locked. See what I mean? That should be easy enough. But notice there's one other thing. Watch. When I grab this kick drum right here and I move it, notice, you see that? Those other kick drums are moving too. So I'm going to lock this one, but then that's going to take all the other ones out of place. There's a way to fix that. Okay. Let's just say that I want to lock in these two kick drums here, but I don't want to move these two kick drums here. Right? What I can do is, see this? See how there's 3 lines now? I'm going to click on that. That's now going to create 3 flex markers. One here on this kick drum, one here on this kick drum, and one here on this kick drum. Did you see how I did that? I'll do that one more time. I'm going to bring my marker above this flex marker. And when I click on it, it's going to create 3 markers, one here, here, and here. Now watch what happens when I move. Now make sure when you grab this kick drum that it's just one line. I'm going to grab this kick drum. Look what happens to this flex marker right here when I move this flex marker right here. Notice nothing's happening to that other kick drum, right? To either one on the left or on the right. So when I lock this in and I lock this in, it's not going to affect this marker right here. Does that make sense? I hope so. What you're going to do is you're going to lock in from measure 96 all the way until measure 115. And then once you do that, we're going to talk about the hi-hat. The hi-hat is the next instrument that gets checked in the sequence. So lock in all of these kick drums right here in this area. And then we'll talk about the hi-hats next. Go ahead and pause it and then come back.